Good morning. I am Holly Magnuson, and this is Ask the Security Guy with Sean Corman. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
So far, so good. It's been a good day.
Hey, it is middle of the week. Things are good. Today, we're going to talk about a very kind of touchy subject, potentially, but we're going to look at dating sites and how those can jeopardize our information potentially. But Sean, did you want to share first about the news that hit yesterday about an Apple breach?
So, sure. So there's actually two breaches out there right now in the mobile world to be aware of. One is for Apple and the iPhone. And to put it in context, it only affects jailbroken devices. So if you jailbroken your iPhone, you're at risk. Otherwise, you're not. Now, for those who have jailbroken their iPhones, what it affects is it gives the attacker complete access to your iTunes account and all the information therein. And the name of it is called KeyRaider. Now, on the Android side, they have a fun one called Stage Fright. And right now, on the Android side, it has not been seen in the wild as of yet. This has only been discovered by a security researcher, and Google has been working with the researcher to resolve the problem. And they've already released one update with most likely another update coming soon to resolve issues that weren't fixed in the first round.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, because I don't know what kind of percentage of people jailbreak their phones. But it was actually my husband who mentioned it to me yesterday and asked if I'd heard about it. And so, it's probably not a huge population that's affected by the iPhone.
It's hard to say. It depends on what kind of an issue you have with Apple's controls.
Yeah. So we'll move right along. As we go along, if you have a question about the iPhones or the Androids or other security questions, feel free to go ahead and ask those. We will answer those probably toward the end. But now I think we want to dive into our topic at hand.
And that's through the Q&A app and the users window. Holly, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And if you happen to be watching via the YouTube link, you'll notice a banner in the lower left-hand corner that says join the conversation. And when you click on that, that will take you to the Q&A app. So you'll be able to ask a question. So feel free to do that as we go along.
Okay. So back in July, and then this story just keeps unfolding. Ashley Madison had a pretty significant security breach. Their database they say they have about 40 million users, and the breach affected about 37 million of those. So pretty much the majority of their users were put out there in the wind. It's been verified by a few different resources. There's a massive file out there available on the web through a variety of interesting resources where you can download the entire database and parse through it if you want. Um, so, and then what makes this even stranger is earlier in the spring, there was another relationship website called Adult Friend Finder that was also breached. Now they have actually a larger database than Ashley Madison, but they only had about 3.8 million users affected by their breach. So this got me to thinking. These are two significant breaches, and when you think about these services, um, while the two that made the news are a very specific niche in the human relationship um, servicing side of the web. Um, Relationship websites or these types of sites that work towards putting people together based on some type of common interest um, are they're interesting because they maintain a level of information about us as human beings that you don't generally see anywhere else. So, a lot of the time when we talk about security and we talk about securing your identity and your finances, These are all things that are fixable. So if your financial information gets out, your credit card gets compromised as part of a breach, you call the credit card company, you tell them that, something happened and they issue you a new card and life moves on. Or actually, this just happened to me. My credit card company notified me that they saw some odd charges and they were sending me a new card. So those things, they're reasonably low impact. They're kind of removed from us a little bit. We're a little bit insulated from it. Identity theft cuts closer to home, but even that is fixable because in the worst case scenario, you can get a new social security number if things get bad enough. You can there's a process for that. You can get a new driver's license. You can get all of these things if your identity is stolen. And it depends on the depth of, how deep it goes, but there are means to correct it. When it comes to things like these relationship websites where they maintain this deep level of information about you as a person and your not only your personality traits, um, likes and dislikes, um, issues you may have that you feel that you want to disclose, and those kinds of things. It's right up there, really, when you think about it, and with medical information and the same that level of information that if a healthcare provider is breached, that is extremely personal information that you can't change and that you really never want out in the public eye because it is something deeply personal, right? Well, these relationship websites maintain that same level of information, just in a different aspect of our lives. And when we think about it and we think about the security around them, they are nowhere near as regulated as medical information. But yet they maintain personality profiles, they have pictures of us, they have all of this information about who you are and what you like and your hopes and dreams and aspirations at a very deeply personal level. So all that leads around to the idea of when you sign up for these sites, are they safe? Well, there are literally thousands of these sites out there, and they serve all kinds of interests, um, whatever you desire. There's something out there that will accommodate your needs. And just coming at this strictly from the security aspect of it, some things to look for when you're looking at these sites. Are they a reputable site? Just do a Google search. There's Reddit articles, there's resources all over the web that will pretty clearly identify whether some of these sites are real or are they scams. Because some of these websites are just scams, they're money making scams, and they work because they leverage human emotions. It's the same thing when we talk about social engineering. One of the biggest things in social engineering that we leverage is fear. The other thing is an abuse of trust. We leverage symbols of authority that people trust to gain access to things that we shouldn't have access to. So, and that's in the social engineering context. Well, they're in this relationships side of the world. Social engineering is alive and well, and they're leveraging a variety of other things and other emotions and human tendencies. So that said, one of the things I think about is as I look at this, because I know people who are using these sites and who are earnestly looking for that special someone. I know people who have used these sites successfully and are happily married. I mean, we talk about eHarmony, we talk about Match, we talk about Christian Mingle, and those are all well-known, well-established sites with good reputations. Ashley Madison and AFF also have reputations of a very different nature, and their clientele are well known for what they provide. So that's aside. When we talk about these things in general, what we're looking at is what are safe ways to engage in to use a site like this or a service like this to find whatever it is you're looking for. So some basic things to think about is when you're putting your information out there for your profile, don't put information in your profile that is too uniquely identifying. You want to avoid names of pets. You want to avoid giving specific ages to things or people that you're related to. You want to keep your profile generic enough that no one can go through it and glean deeply personal information about you. That's something if you establish a good, if you establish trust with somebody and you choose to share that, fine. But don't just do it for for everyone on that site. For photos, you want to use photos that do not demonstrate an area or really are identifiable as an area that you frequent. So, for instance, if you went to the Grand Canyon 2 years ago and you have a picture of you standing there, that's fine because it's not, generally speaking, it's not going to be somewhere you go daily. Having a picture of you in front of your house that shows the street sign or your house address would be a different thing and not advisable. So it's just basic things to think about. Um, Pets' names, children's names, ages, none of those things are things you want to make readily apparent in these human relationship sites. And the other thing that I think about too, and I've seen this as a recommendation on a few. There's actually a website that we'll talk about in a little bit that has great tips in a variety of areas for being safe on these sites. But another thing to think about is use a throwaway email address. Don't use your personal email address to sign up for these sites. Gmail, Yahoo, MSN, Hotmail, all will give you a free email address. I would recommend, if you're going to sign up for one of these sites, use an email address that is not your primary personal email address. That way, again, if there's a breach like this, the amount of exposure and risk is low. The credit card that you use for these sites, that's a practice that we talk about, just the same practice everywhere. Don't use a credit card or a bank card that's linked to your primary checking account. Use a credit card with a low limit that you use specifically for this purpose. And that way, again, it's a low risk thing. You're mitigating risk. So those are some of the things we talk about, as we think about it. There's a website called, let me see, onlinedatingsafetytips.com. And they have scams, they have getting started tips, they have computer security tips, password security, email security, profile tips, and even dating tips. They even have a tip in there where they talk about if you're going to meet someone, what's the best practice for doing so. Meet in a public setting with lots of people around, those kinds of things. So the breach, as troublesome as it can be, and it has had some very significant implications. The Ashley Madison breach, so far, there's 2 unconfirmed reports of suicides in Canada related directly to this breach. There are politicians that in a variety of locations around the world who are going forward and acknowledging that, yes, they were part of the site. And, that's going to have an impact on their lives and their families. The data that was released by the hackers, I mean, it includes names, passwords, addresses, phone numbers, street addresses, even the last 4 digits of your credit card number that was used for the site. And what's worse is the hacking group is claiming that they're going to start releasing chat logs and email addresses between members, which could be, even more revealing in a very unpleasant way. So think about, again, how you communicate on these sites, what you're putting out there, and when is it time to switch to a different type of communication, either phone calls, emails through another account, something where you're not keeping all of your eggs in one basket and just mitigate the risk. So, just as a funny side note, the hackers who claim to have breached Ashley Madison are called the Impact Team. Now, what makes it more interesting is John McAfee has gone forward, and again, these are unconfirmed reports, so take them for what they are. And he's saying that a single female employee of the company that owns Ashley Madison released all the data. Which one do we believe? Who knows? The Impact Team is out there saying that they breached it and they were asleep at the wheel and there was no real security once they got in. Stories abound as to what this could actually be.
And regardless, the information is out there.
Exactly. Yeah. So who's claiming credit for releasing it? Kind of irrelevant. The fact that it's out there is relevant.
Very relevant.
So again, just a word of caution. The sites, stick with a reputable site. eHarmony, Match, Christian Mingle are all examples of reputable sites that are well known for success rates and doing a good thing. And chances are, like me, you may know somebody who found their mate through one of these services. But be careful, because there are predators online everywhere.
Yeah, and I think some of the tips you've given, as far as not sharing too many specifics about yourself, is just one of the things that we need to think about across any social media, whether it's a dating site or Facebook or whatever.
And that's a great point. Think about how much personal information Facebook asks for, and how they prompt you. Hey, when did you graduate? What high school did you go to? And those kinds of things. I know my Facebook is always prompting me for those things because I don't put them in there. Where did you work and all of that. And that's not information Facebook needs.
Definitely Facebook doesn't need. So far, no questions yet. If you have a question and you don't see the Q&A app, if you move your mouse over to the left-hand side of the screen of the Hangout, it should, may pop up there where you are, the Q&A, so you can ask a question, whether it's a question about the dating sites or this breach or any news that you've heard and you have questions about related to security.
So on the Stagefright breach for Android, it's interesting. The way that actually works is if a very specifically crafted video is sent to you via text message, it'll take advantage of the vulnerability in Android. So it's kind of the details of it are super geeky, and I won't get into that here.
Thank you.
But it's actually it's a pretty neat thing, because they were saying, for instance, for people who use Google Hangouts on their phone, for Hangouts and text messaging, it will autoplay the video, or it may autoplay the video, which would automatically allow the exploit to run.
Nice.
So again, the carriers are working to roll out the patches that Google's already released, and Google is working on another version of that update to tighten it down some more.
So again, it's another reminder that even though sometimes it's time consuming and seems frustrating, doing the updates on our phones are important, almost as important as on our computers. Is that correct?
Well, your phone is a small computer. At the end of the day, your phone is a small computer, and keeping it up to date with the patches that are coming from your carrier is extremely important. I don't know if anyone has received smishing, which is basically phishing via text. There are links that will come through via text message that if you click on them, they can compromise your phone, depending on what kind of phone you have. And just like in the computer world, it's specific to the type of phone you have, the version you're running, all these variables. So, just like, when we talk about your desktop or your laptop, is it running Mac? Is it running Windows? If it's running, which version is it running? And does it have, this browser or that browser or the other browser installed? So when you think about all those variables that come into play, these vulnerabilities they're going for the largest common denominator, and they're looking for market share. So an example of that is, it's a long-standing myth that Apple is more secure than Windows.
Yes, it is. Every Mac user I know will tell you that.
Yes, they will, and they are wrong. Now, the reason is that there have been fewer vulnerabilities discovered in Mac OS historically because there has been a lower market share than Windows historically. As that changes, and as Apple makes more and more inroads into the marketplace, they are getting more and more attention from the Black Hat community. And they have been very successful in finding holes in Mac.
Yeah, and because so many Mac users tend to not want to believe that they are a security risk, they're probably more likely to get hit because they rest in that security.
Yeah, there's that feeling of security because I'm on a Mac. Yeah. And for the record, I do not use Macs.
I do. I have a Mac and a Windows machine, but I'm, not naive enough to think that I'm invincible on either machine.
Yeah. Now, I do testing with them, but I don't use one for my daily driver.
Now, going back to the Android phones and this type of thing, is there a well, I'm trying to think of a virus package program, spyware type program like we can buy for our computers. Are there any that you would recommend for phones?
For phones, there's actually several good ones out there. The one I use called Lookout Mobile. Avast has a good product as well.
Avast is what I have. It was the app of the day through Kindle or through Amazon, and I got it for free, the full version.
And there are a number of other very good antivirus programs and anti-spyware programs out there for the Android platform, and they're great. And there's some out there for the Apple side too. Although I'm not really familiar with them, I just know anecdotally that there are.
Okay, well, we still have no questions.
Oh, kind of quiet today.
Kind of quiet. Nobody wants to ask questions about this one because, who knows why.
Well, given the nature of the topic, I would say this. If you have questions that you are not comfortable sharing in the open forum, feel free to email either Holly or I at iso@apu.edu, or reach out to us individually, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. I do understand that the nature of the conversation around these sites tends to be very personal, and people generally don't want to hang that out there.
Yeah, and we do understand that, but feel free, contact us, either one of us directly or through the iso@apu.edu account, and we'll get back to you.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else for today. Holly, do you have any?
Someone wants to ask a question but cannot get to the question bar. If you want to go ahead and get that question and type it in, Nancy, that would be awesome. So it looks like we have one question coming.
Okay.
So why that question hopefully is going to come. Just highlight that this month in September, we have 2 more Hangouts. One that I'm very excited about on September 23rd. I believe that's the Wednesday. At 2 p.m., we're going to have Jeff Birch and Don Davis in Hangout with IMT. So that will be a great opportunity to hear from them, ask them questions, and see what happens with that. And then Final Friday wrap-up will be 2 days later on the 25th at 2 p.m. She wants to know what to do if she has already given out personal email address for the dating site.
Most dating sites will allow you to change the email address that they have on file, your personal email address, either in your profile settings or account settings, or you can contact customer service for whatever service it is and request that they do that for you.
And, and I mean, if worse came to worse, you probably could delete the account and start over, possibly. I don't know how they will work.
It depends on, if they're a paid member or not, and it's actually simpler to just go through the process of changing it.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that will help her. So, and not seeing any other questions coming up, so we'll give just a moment. Tomorrow morning, if everybody probably watching knows, we've got the faculty staff kickoff at 8:30, and so it'd be exciting to see everybody again and the new year kicking off officially. So
we're excited.
All right. Well, I'm seeing no other questions coming through. Again, feel free to reach out to us individually if you would like, and we will sign off for today.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.